Welcome to the Poetry Foundation's virtual event, Common Ground. My name is Liz, and I'm the media manager at the Poetry Foundation. My pronouns are she, her. As a visual description, I am a white woman with glasses and blue hair. Today, we are so excited to be collaborating with Poetry Ireland to present the first in a series of transatlantic events. We will start today's event, Common Ground, with readings from Doireann Ní Ghríofa and Teri Ellen Cross Davis. After that, both poets will join a discussion moderated by Erin Fornoff. If you have any questions for our readers, please submit them via the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we will try to answer them at the end of the event. We recognize that the Poetry Foundation building is situated on the occupied original homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa nations, among other Indigenous nations. Indigenous people continue to live here today, and Chicago is home to one of the largest urban Indigenous communities in the United States. While we are meeting on a virtual platform, it remains crucial that we recognize the stolen resources and lands that enable us to connect tonight. We gather recognizing that some of us are settlers on colonized land, and that this land acknowledgement is one small part of disrupting and dismantling the colonial structures in which we are living. A few accessibility notes. To access live captioning, click the CC button at the bottom of the screen. Alternatively, you can view captioning in a separate window at the link pasted in the chat. Additionally, tonight we have two ASL interpreters with us who we will pin and spotlight alongside speakers throughout the event. If you encounter any technical issues and need support, you can raise your hand and someone from the events team will private message you. This event is being recorded and will be posted on our website at poetryfoundation.org/video for public viewing. We invite you to treat this as a relaxed virtual space. Feel free to do what you need for your body and mind to be more at ease. If you need a snack or to go to the bathroom or call a friend, feel free to step away. Take a second now to make yourself 10% more comfortable. To start us off, our first reader is Doireann Ní Ghríofa. Doireann Ní Ghríofa is a poet and essayist. Her prose debut, A Ghost in the Throat, was awarded the 2021 James Tate Black Prize for Biography and is described as powerful by the New York Times and captivatingly original by The Guardian. She is also the author of 6 critically acclaimed books of poetry, each a deepening exploration of birth, death, desire, and domesticity. Awards for her writing include a Lannan Literary Fellowship, the Hostana Prize, a Seamus Heaney Fellowship from Queen's University, and the Rooney Prize for Irish Literature. Please give a warm welcome to Doireann Ní Ghríofa.
Gachtainna is mór an anard an bheith an sála banacht agus mar rinne leid bhualam pobl an Ojibwe agus Potawatomi agus Odawa a ahand choma. I'd like to begin by acknowledging also, as Liz did, the complexity of the histories of colonial violence and trauma that intersect in the occupied homelands of the Council of Three Fires. It's really my honor to join you all today. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm going to be reading poems in our own language, as Gaeilge, with my own translations to English, accompanied by a further translation to ASL, thanks to the kind support of our interpreters, Mona, Jean, and Moxie also today. So I'd like to take this moment to thank both of them and to thank our friends at Poetry Ireland and at the Poetry Foundation for bringing Teri Ellen and Erin and I together. Míle buíochas libh go léir. Thank you. Our Irish language word solace might be translated as comfort or consolation. And this first poem grew from the belief in Irish folklore that the souls of miscarried and stillborn infants would often return as little birds, as sedge warblers, to comfort their mothers with bird song. And this is a loss that I, like many others, have known. And This inherited belief brought a little comfort to me in my own grief. Solas. Fui gali man ihe. The heol kailte. Villain she o krielke kiene. Athnium de vaul brine. A heolere kiebe. Is faderlam gewille to erishkum. Listen. In midnight moon mist. In snatches of lost music, I've heard her return from the distance. Little visitor, your birthmark looks so familiar. Every night I'll wait, awake, until the last starlight fades. Find me, child. I yearn for your return. Within the next poem, I wanted to conjure a river, a real river, my favorite river, the river that flows through all of my books and through the city I live in, and that is the River Lee. And to conjure something of that river's wildness, I decided to also conjure a very ordinary item from my kitchen. So I'm going to try to read this poem in both the languages simultaneously, weaving my translation from the Irish language into the original, weaving my translation from Irish and the translation into English as best I can. Sorry for mixing that up. The poem itself is called Scrabble Stein, which we would translate as tinfoil, but might be more familiar to a lot of you as aluminum foil. Scrolla fata arrogant, rianta ineven an hopefra, lupa I ranor cart large, le lan ioclach, shraken as, chun béal VC, a chur vauli, it's a froki, and chichnora, sailbocht, surach. O aluminium roll. O silver scroll confined in a cupboard, bound in cardboard, restrained behind a jagged blade that tears lengths away to mute the bowls and jars of the fridge. O small, spare existence. Úsglíonn é, an scraggle stáin, dhéanann abhainn as, lí bhín lia, scaoilte timpeall an tí. I would free it, this twisted thing. I'd lift it from its cabinet and spin a river of it, to loosen a smooth grey spool through our rooms. Bors leva an staire dairiach an inche I ngúgan bara, is as sin squealing cloideach isci giala na lí, chun sníomh sias le fána, ribín lia ag ritríd an hala, bhui gritid an tilig, scálina bric ruas bredáin ag snáb faoin biliscinte. At the summit of the stairs, the source would spurt up from Gugan Barra, setting a mountain stream to gush, and I'd lift and give it a push. I'd let the bright waters of the Lee rush down the slope until the hall filled with spilled silver ribbon. Under the bridge of our couch, shadows of salmon and brown trout would swim in and out of river weeds. Leanach na hiisci wahub, de chóir timpeall na nairse go cathair na cistena. Le fi is fáir na bhfuilán hairstí, scaoileann isci sciupa, a dhéanach I láin de chus a bird is brúcha de bhailí. A churach glór na haun na cána faoi hóchar na gcópaí, abhainn cathrach déanta dé, brac le scálanna dúracha lámacha. The waters would surge onwards then, swirling under doors to the city kitchen, where gulls screech and shriek high. I would thrust swifter currents that might make islands of table legs and riverbanks of walls. I'd give the water a voice. Through the culverts that run under cupboards, a lilting city song, lifting from liquid speckled with gloom shadows of mullet. Chuireann roan éonar ar strainte, is Colleen óg rua an aon duine ó bháin na decoché. Song of frost. I'd put a single seal there, lost, and conjure the only person who'd glimpse it, a red-haired girl on the docks. Harangian an awan le húlach a scéalta ile ina dig is lúbinní, sheer choom. I'd heave that river back then. I'd haul it in brash armfuls all the way back to me. Trapha, tracha, cúlatha, dilhinní a rash sa chofra a ríist. Shrunken, crumpled, torn, I'd fold it and close it back in its press once more. I'm just going to take this up. Don Ella. With the next poem, there was a Nigerian artist, Odubong Nakaga, that came to Dublin a few years ago to prepare an exhibition at a gallery where, at the time, I was writer in residence, Temple Bar Gallery. And I was so taken with the work she made during her time here that I wrote this poem for her based on her art. And then she had it woven into fabric within the exhibition itself. So that was amazing. But my poems are often drawn to entities that are marked by kind of duality. And in this one, a gate maybe beckoning towards opening, towards connection, but also gesturing towards an existing barrier or division, or both. Is quail an niotal, is quail an gata, a cheasan adrin ihe cheaca, is quail an tíran, is quail an lúb, is quail an squilt, dar scarúnt. Slender the metal, slender the gate, slender the border where frost grows late. Slender the metal, slender the twist, how it divides us, how it splits. So, given that our encounter today is occurring through screens and that I'm sitting so far away from all of you, the next poem I've chosen to read speaks from within that uneasy juxtaposition between screens and flimsy connections, and how we often now find ourselves at the whim of such technologies, and never more so than during this pandemic. So the title of this poem, Gléoch, is a word which translates to English as call. Ní cheang bliain, ein chóir the quail, ein shrang telephone sin níos mó. I réimse na ríomhrí, ní hiclam do rá a bhrú níos cuire go mo chlúil. Ní chluisim tú ag análú, níos sé an líne lag seo an tain teangal amháin atá fágtha atring, agus tiitimid as éile a ríist. No slender thread, no telephone cord binds us anymore. Now that our computers call each other, I can't press your voice to my ear. No longer can I hear you breathe. Now we are bound only by this weak connection, and we break up and break up and break. I'm going to end now with a little poem of hope and with gratitude for all of you for being here this evening and for listening. My poems often grow from the spark of my own curiosity about words. And this poem began when I first learned the word for those little pale marks that we often have at the base of our fingernails. And that word became the title of this final poem, Lunule. Though it grew dark and darker, how could we despair when we remembered the crescents in each fingernail? 10 little moons to glimmer our grip, lips of brightness that persist, holding our hands even in darkness. Gur míle maith agaibh, gur maith agaibh.
Thank you so much, Doireann. If you'd like to read more of Doireann's writing, please check out her website, doireannigrifa.com, and find her books, including the multi-award winner, A Ghost in the Throat from Biblioasis. Up next is Teri Ellen Cross Davis. Teri Ellen Cross Davis is a poet and the author of A More Perfect Union, the 2019 winner of the Journal Charles B. Wheeler Poetry Prize. Her debut collection, Haint, won the 2017 Ohioana Award for Poetry. She is the 2020 winner of the Poetry Society of America's Robert H. Winter Memorial Award and a recipient of grants from the Freya Project and the Sustainable Arts Foundation. A Cave Canem Fellow, she is a member of the Black Ladies Brunch Collective, and her work has been published in many anthologies and journals. She is the O.B. Hardison Poetry Series Artistic Curator and Poetry Programs Manager for the Folger Shakespeare Library in Washington, D.C., and lives in Maryland with her husband, poet Hayes Davis, and their 2 children.
Hi, thank you, Liz, for that introduction. Thank you to the Poetry Foundation and to Poetry Ireland for creating this shared space of community and poetry. It is such a pleasure to be in conversation with Doireann and with Erin. In fact, I was so taken with A Ghost in the Throat that some of these poems I'm sharing are in direct conversation with that text. In my second collection, I created my own goddesses. This was a way to blend my comic book loving upbringing with my love of mythology, adding in a lived divinity of my own. The goddess of anger. Did he touch you? Did he hit you with jagged words or closed fists? Did he laugh at you? Were you polite even then? Were you lava under the skin? Then let me in. Unsheath the dagger of me. You've tasted pain. Now let me master it. Let me in. I'll use the dust of his bones for tea. I'll rise, vengeful and caustic, a florid fury, steeped in seething. I'll make his eyes bleed. Let me in. I'll dissect him unflinchingly, A backhand slap, a rake of fingernails, I'll spit my small mercies. I'll dance on him in stilettos, paint my toenails OPI red while the blood congeals. Let me be your ignition point, your pitch, the whoosh of hot, sweet breath. I'm all your swallowed heat simmered into flesh. I, too, can lift burdens. Let go of fear, of retribution. Let go of decorum and shame. Ride rage until it bucks, then jump on it again. Damn it. Let me in. I will say that it has been at once the slowest of curves and the fastest motherhood. And mother is yet another title, another way we can be seen in the world. And like all titles, it too carries a weight. 2 glasses of milk. If I were to leave them 2 glasses of milk, don't write about that. Write about the napkin, the perfect triangle tucked around the circle of glass, the absorbed condensation. If I were to leave them 2 glasses of milk, it would be the tension of motherhood and career, poet and wife, pulling like teeth at my extended nipples until I was greedily consumed in silence. If I were to leave them 2 glasses of milk, even across my tombstone would be the words, daughter, wife, mother, identities like anchors, so heavy I would carry them even after death. Some poems come from lived experiences, some come with privilege. I was so taken with the powerful relationship to and presence of breast milk and a ghost in the throat that I thought of this poem. I cannot read this poem without acknowledging that I was able to breastfeed both my children for 18 and 25 months, largely because I had an office with a door and access to a clean kitchen. I wish breastfeeding accommodations could be provided to any lactating person in need. Let down. The books say that milk letdown feels like pins and needles, but when you're pumping at work, it's more like lungs constricting under the crush of chlorinated water. You know, God willing, when she's 16 or 25, you'll never be this essential again. So remember this smothering need now, the engorged breast, the suction, the release. Know the ache swelling and flowing from you is caused by your hands cradling plastic bottles, that your warm, twisting baby is elsewhere, away from you. Know the sadness will threaten to sweep you under each time you take out the pump and you can't swim away from it. You must do this for her. You must stay. You must drown. Sometimes there is strength in owning how many times you had to fall before you were able to stand. The goddess of scars. I mark you with melanin, a crosshatch of collagen, better the scar than the loss of limb, better the clean line, raised itch, festering wound, beckoning death. My apostles, my keloids, my atropic, my contractures, my hypertrophic response. Each a love I bear to the mammal of you, the ruptured vessel, the broken in dermis. Consider my evolution a song to survival. Consider cells my priests, their work a ladder of prayer, each stitch an epistle. I grieve to see you separate from yourself. My atonement is a bridge to build you back together. While you can never be born again, you can recover. Each time I sign you, witness the parable of action and consequence. I do not think you show enough reverence. You were never meant to be a smooth canvas, but a texture, a testament. I bless you with a story, and each and every time you live to tell the tale. I grew up hearing that I had an Irish ancestor. That picture of successive paternal grandfathers showed a distinctly pale figure as the paterfamilias. My glamorous aunt, who traveled the world, said if she had her pick of where she could live as a Black woman, it would be Ireland or Scotland. Surprisingly, or not so surprisingly, Ancestry.com validated the Irish ancestry on both sides. So when I first set foot in Ireland, it felt slightly familiar. This poem is called A Black Woman Learns Ireland's History by Bus. It took a civil rights museum to lift the skirts of the maiden city of Derry. Here's where I saw her Seamus Heaney tattoo. Belfast, the stamp at the bottom of the Titanic. Here, I breathe in an industry defined by ghosts. Then it's back to you, Dublin. How I got sweet on you, I do not know. Blame that ancestor long ago. Let's hope it was consensual. But the words that crawl your streets align with my fault lines. Neither of us accustomed to joy. On the road to Limerick, crumbling forts shimmer and shine like mirages. On the River Shannon, swans play their part near King John's castle. Here, Frederick Douglass honed his pleas for justice. Shivers dart down my bare brown arms. But it's Newgrange where stacked ancient stones call my blood to rise. 2 times a year, the sun flings a season's new song into a quartz cavern. Here, lifetimes were spent, bent, building tempos to echo eons. At the entrance, water collects in a giant rock's hollowed hand. A wizened man whispers to me, dip your fingers and touch what ails you. I will say that I wanted 3 children when I got married. My husband wanted 2. I mean, we had the strollers, the bottles, the equipment, and well, we have 2. And I love these 2, but there are days when the fear of what I have done as a Black person in America hits me hard. I have made 2 more Black people who are now experiencing racism in this country. As a parent, I am ultimately failing in this one thing. I cannot protect them from this hurt. And to note, the perniciousness of the principle that's listed below. And this poem is called Partus Sequitur Ventrum, and it has an epigraph that reads, and it explains what Partus Sequitur Ventrum means. It's a Latin phrase that stands for the principle that the children of an enslaved woman are themselves born as slaves and owned by their mother's master. This poem is in 2 parts. 1, morning. His knobby 6-year-old knees, his anxious pace as if to keep step with the question steady overflow. Is there a giant octopus in the Bermuda Triangle? How is paper made? How do fireworks know when to explode? No one told me Black boys could burn so bright. Wait, I am wrong. The dark sky has seen their fire, snuffed by white hoods, malevolent blue eyes, and bluer uniforms. White women's screams, all have been matched to their tender wood. So I hug my son tight, kiss the curl cropped so close it's straight. My mother eye insatiable. He is dessert, and I'll always have seconds. Each morning, I lick my thumb, clean him up good, wishing in vain the amniotic sac had dried to armor. 2, night. His lisp, loose, syrupy sweet, sneaks into my ear. Feel its heat, small source, more flicker than flame, flanked by arms still dreaming of muscle. He claims, my squishy stomach, the best pillow. If the security of our locked arms could extend beyond growth spurts, clocks, calendars, to the someone interviewing him, to the someone following him in the store, to the someone holding my son's life in trembling fingers poised above a phone's keypads. Let my love be a note, safety pin to his chest. Send him back, alive, unharmed. As a Black mother in America, I know my wells are birthright, pinned with iron, penned in ink. I am so thankful to have been in this space. I end with this moment and in the power in it. My mother once told me that even if she didn't have much, she kept it clean. And that can mean anything from home to clothing. When so much in the news seems overwhelming, I focus on what I can do, which is clean, the goddess of cleaning. I bequeath you bleach, its singeing sting. I bequeath you the scrub brush, best done on hands and knees. I bequeath you ammonia for the exorcism of dirt. I bequeath you power over clutter, the washing machine spin, the dryer's lint grin. I bequeath you the salvation of sweeping, a consecrated grip on the broomstick. I bequeath you the dustpan's collection plate, the floor's sanctified echo, the trash bin's penitent face. I bequeath you the gospel of a mop, the sacred slosh of a rinse bucket's second coming. I bequeath you the torn t-shirt as rag, the two-sided sponge, vinegar and newspaper squeak, the glass free of streak. I bequeath you an old toothbrush for tiles hard to reach grime. I bequeath you the grunt and scrub of wool, the eradication of rust. Trust in me, I baptize you in sweat, labor's beatific stain. I bequeath you the power to change, one room at a time. Thank you so much.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Teri Ellen. You can find more of Teri's work at poetsandparents.com, and please check out her most recent book and winner of the Journal Charles B. Wheeler Poetry Prize, A More Perfect Union, from Mad Creek Books. Now it's time for discussion. Our discussion today will be moderated by Erin Fornoff. An American in Ireland, Erin Fornoff has published a poetry collection, Hymn to the Reckless, shortlisted for the Shine Strong Award, and a chapbook, Folk Heroes. An experienced performer, she has featured at events globally, including 3 times at Glastonbury Festival. She has received literature bursaries for her novel and play from the Arts Council of Ireland. You can find some of Erin's work at the links we will place in the chat, and please check out her book, Hymn to the Reckless, from Dedulus Press. And now, readers, you're welcome to turn on your cameras and we can start the discussion. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thank you both, Doireann and Teri, for those incredible readings. There's something wonderful about a Zoom reading, because so many people can join from all over the world. But the negative bit is that it's oddly silent and you can't hear all the ums and the screams and the shouts and the applause that these poems really warranted. So I wanted to start with something of a self-invested question. So as someone who pumped milk less than an hour ago to be present at this reading, I wanted to talk to Teri and Doireann about motherhood. And I'd be interested to hear from both of you how you feel that motherhood has affected your work and how your work has changed since becoming mothers.
Would you mind if I begin? Because
Yes.
I just want to say, oh my gosh, that the poem that you just read, all of them. I was glad that my camera was turned off because my jaw was just hanging open the whole time. I loved your reading so much. And the poem that you read with the pump to begin with, so beautiful. You must say, you must drown. I was so struck by that, and the rhythm of an electric breast pump as we're expressing milk. It makes such sense to me that those kind of rhythms can work their way into a poem, but oh, that just took all the air from my lungs. I absolutely loved your reading. Sorry, that wasn't answering the question, Erin. It's just gushing.
Thank you so much, Doireann. I just, this is such an opportunity. And what you all did not encounter was me and all these notes and a ghost in the throat with like, oh, here's where the goddess of cleaning. Yes, here's where the goddess of anger. Let down. Oh, the breast milk. Oh, there was so much. The breast milk, the blood. There's so much. And I know, and Erin, you asked this incredible question, and this is in many ways an answer to you. It has made so much of my life more complex, more enriching, and saddened a part of my life too. Like I said, there are things I know I can't protect my children from. There are things that you have this innocent body that's been put into the world, and the world is so anxious to harm it. And so it's in many ways giving me many moments of reflection, because as a poet too, there are those moments when they're young and you're trying to teach your children things and you use these idioms and it makes you rethink language because they're learning language for the first time. So it also put a spin and a shine on language that it didn't have for me before, because all of a sudden language could be new to me all over again as I heard it come out these tiny little mouths. So that's part of my answer. I'd love to hear what you have to say, Doireann.
Oh, I suppose it's difficult for me to answer it because I only came to writing after I'd become a mom. I was already had given birth to my first son by the time I ever picked up a pen and started to write. So I've no idea what it's like to be a poet or to feel the surge of a poem as it comes through the body without having that experience of balancing it with someone else's needs. In terms of how motherhood nourishes my work, in ways that are tangible and to be felt within the writing itself, but also in the unspoken elements of it, that part of my identity is really deeply ingrained in the making of the poems and in the poems themselves. Perhaps most of all in the ones where it's not directly referenced within the poem, it's still there, it's surging under the surface. Yeah.
So just a side note to all of you guys listening, if anybody has any questions, please throw them into the chat and we can try and incorporate them as we're talking now. But going off of that theme of motherhood, so as people who identify as women, as mothers, would you say that you strive to be political or that you are inherently political by virtue of being women, by being mothers? Teri, let's start with you, particularly as a Black woman in America.
It's more inherently political. I like to say that Black joy and Black love are revolutionary in this country because this country was not created for it. So anytime I wake up and I'm ready to take on this world with a smile and love in my heart, that's a revolution and that's political. So it's, and then too, you think of things Baldwin said, to be basically awake and aware in this country is to be constantly like enraged. And so I feel like anytime I don't fit within the prescribed category that I'm supposed to be in, anytime that I'm uppity, anytime that I want more than I'm supposed to want, anytime that I'm like, I don't want to sit at the table, I want to flip the table open and burn the house down, it's political. and that's kind of every day. So yeah, inherently, every breath of mine is a political breath.
And Doireann, how about you? Do you strive to be political in your work, or do you feel like it happens by default?
I don't feel that there's an element of striving at all. I feel like it is inherent in our work. I feel that when we choose to step onto a stage and speak from our experiences, it's always political. I mean, for me to write poems in the Irish language and to insist on speaking that language out loud, particularly when we're given extraordinary platforms like this, that's a political choice to decide to make half my reading in the Irish language. I mean, it's such an important part of who I am as a person, to keep that element of our culture, which that language is, you know, that people keep saying is dying, it's dead. It doesn't feel dying or dead to me. It feels very much alive, and it's so important. So I feel like it is inherent in the act of poetry, in the act of insistence upon the importance of a voice and the language in which we speak and what we're choosing to give voice to. You know, like you have either Teri Ellen or you have me step onto a stage. We're speaking from our own experience of being women within these cultures, what our experiences have been, and that's always going to be political. We're coming from such different perspectives, and yet there is an inherent politics to that act.
Mm. Oh. Yeah, but so both of you guys, I mean, moving on from into, you know, with being expressly political in topics as well, you talk a lot about struggle, and struggle would be a theme in both of your work. And you know, one thing with poetry is that it makes the ugly beautiful. And so I wonder how do you reconcile a focus on struggle and you know, lifting the ugliness that is in the world and the fear that is in your own life? How do you reconcile that with putting it in an art form that makes it beautiful?
I don't know if you heard that, but there you got it. It's like, it's all of those things of what you said, Erin, and to put it forward, to put it on the page, is to acknowledge that it exists in my heart and in my head and inside my soul, and to be honest, because what else is there in poetry but to be honest, to find the truth? To be honest on the page is freeing, and it's validating, and it's confirmation too of our humanity. And I think that's it, because that pain, I know that when I've written things that have been hard to endure, I have felt a freedom afterward. And then I feel a community when I run into people who express something about that poem. So it's about finding community through that pain, and being strong enough to be honest and voice it for me.
Right, Doireann, what would you say?
I mean, it's so fraught that the artistic impulse, I guess, that we share results sometimes in taking something that feels horrible and ugly, and the fact that the act of attempting to articulate that can transform it in some way to something that appears to have beauty within it. It's something that I still don't fully understand myself. It's something I wonder about. And my own complicity in that act of transformation, that it feels almost inevitable. I feel I'm not practiced enough in this art form yet to be able to intentionally create something that uses ugly language and that resists that temptation to cast something of beauty from it, that sits defiantly within its own ugliness. I find it difficult to, I just haven't come close to even mastering that or coming close to practicing that yet. But in terms of, for me, the poem is like, it's like a little song, you know, it's like a little song. So there's always a certain beauty in the rhythm and the motion of the language, and to stand, particularly when there's that sense of community, to stand and to sing that little song, and to have people who have gathered with you respond to the song, or even find themselves joining in with it and recognizing something of their own experience in it. That is the beauty of poetry for me. And I think there's a place for that to sing a beautiful song of something that is painful or that has an ache within it, but that people recognize or that have shared it. I'm not articulating this well because it's not something I still fully understand, but I'm really grateful to Erin because that's a really fascinating thing to think about. I'm going to be mulling that over for a while, I think.
And so, Doireann, you've had six collections of poetry now, and a book. I mean, how do you're saying there that you're not anywhere close to mastering that sort of stuff. What do you feel like you have mastered? Or, this is a very un-Irish thing. It's a very un-Irish question, so you're just going to have to handle it. Right? What do you, and Teri, just be ready because I'm going to be asking you this next. What do you feel like you have started to master in your writing? Like, what are you really proud of?
So that is a genuinely hard question because actually, you know what, I can answer it. What I have mastered within my artistic practice is being hard on myself, hard enough on myself not to be able to answer the question. I don't mean like I'm doing myself down or whatever. I think it's just that I'm constantly trying to stretch and trying to reach and trying to leap. And I'm going at such a gallop that I don't really think like that of, okay, what mountains have I scaled so far? Because all I can see is what I'm aiming for next. And that's a really earnest and honest answer. I don't know that I've mastered anything. All I know is that every poem that I try to turn my hand to teaches me how to compose it. I don't feel like there's necessarily an arsenal of skills that I'm building up. It's every time I'm trying and I'm falling down. And I think that's why sometimes for us as teachers, when we have the opportunity to teach poetry, it comes quite naturally to us as poets sometimes, I think, because you're sitting in a room with people who are trying to write a poem, and that act of writing the poem isn't something you feel necessarily you've mastered. You can empathize with the attempt to write a poem from scratch because you're doing it every time you sit to a page yourself as well, you know. Yeah. So I don't know. The short answer is I don't think I've mastered anything really.
Right. Teri, how about you?
I have to agree with Doireann. I don't know that I've mastered anything, but I do know that I have an enthusiasm to explore things. And one of the things I like to explore a lot is music. And only recently I put the connection that as a Gen Xer, as a child, you know, who grew up in the 80s when hip hop was created, that musicality has influenced my work. And I only recently figured that out. Like, oh yeah, you grew up with, 6 minutes Dougie Fresh on. And so all of that is in my head. And it comes out. And so, yeah, I don't know that I have mastered much or anything, to be honest. I think I've kept the energy level high to explore more and to be curious. And if there's anything I could say that I have a lot of, it's curiosity. There's so much of this world that I want to explore and know. There's so much of myself I need to still explore and know. I won't be done knowing myself. Even on my last day, I still won't know. So yeah, not, and Doireann, that's such a great point too. I think by not feeling like I've mastered it, I too can empathize with my students. And I know how hard it is to look at that blank page and be so intimidated by it, or to look at the poem that you put on the page and then to feel like it's not anything you thought it would be, and to want to hide it in the closet and never see it again. I've had all those feelings. So yeah, I would say all I can master is my humility coming into it, because that's it. I know I'm a humble being coming to that page, and it will knock me down a few pegs every time.
Okay, so what would you say the other person has mastered? So Teri, something that Doireann, in your mind, is just absolutely nailing, and Doireann, something that Teri, I think poets don't give each other enough flowers sometimes.
Oh, I will tell you, Doireann, I love how you wove in Irish language and English and just and in the way that you did it, it always makes me feel like it's referencing the complicated history there. And so I love that element. And I also love your pacing in your poems, because they take their time and they unfold. And I appreciate that. And even if some of them can be shorter or longer, they still, it's like there's an air in between each word. So each word can blossom on its own for me. And then that makes these connections. It's like little tendrils from each word to the next word making connections. And there's just something in that breath, in the space in between those words and how they blossom that becomes a bouquet every time I read a poem of yours. That's
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's so lovely to hear that. My gosh. It comes to me so quickly. There's an awful lot I have to choose from, in fairness, in answering that question. But I look up so much to writers where it feels like song to me. And I don't just mean that in terms of how the poems sound when you hear the poet reading it themselves. I mean the feeling in my body that I get. And I have that so much with your work. I'm transported, but also, like with music, there are certain poems, there are certain songs that immediately capture and conjure that feeling within me and totally transport me. And I love that so much. I love the specific rhythm that there is, like a song, but I also love that sense of almost finding yourself within the melody of your poems, within the music of them. There are none of your poems that I've read where you could read it and not hear the song being sung by the poem, even when you're not reading it. And when I read them, I can hear your voice in my ear, and that's a rare and a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Oh, lovely. So to touch on how these poems come into the world, I'd love to hear a little bit from each of you about how your process works. Starting with you, Doireann. So you get an image or a phrase, and then what happens?
Often for me, like I was saying, there'll be like a word, like that little one, Lunulate, that I was talking about. I'm a really voracious reader, and anytime I come across a word, which is often that I didn't know, there's a kind of alchemy in that for me, and often a poem will be sparked from that. And from the kind of friction with other words that are placed adjacent to that original word. So like individual words are a huge spark for me, in kind of trying to light the fires of different poems. And history, I'm really, really drawn to history. I'm working a lot in our city archives at the moment. And I do find myself really drawn to different moments from history, and oftentimes it's trying to give voice to that will bring a poem to life for me.
Mm. And Teri, how about you? An image or a phrase comes to you, and then what happens?
Sometimes I just kind of let it roll around in my head and gather like a tumbleweed until it has enough inertia to tumble right out my mouth and onto the page. Sometimes I'll be in conversation with someone and all of a sudden the language will start connecting like Legos. I have an 11-year-old, sorry. So Legos are in my head. But the language will begin to connect like Legos, and there'll be things that come alive, and that's when I'll have to, dip and find a pen and some paper. So it's about letting my mind be that flypaper to catch all those little images, all those little phrases. And it's amazing to me how much my mind keeps up with these little images and phrases until they collect, till they have a body, till they have a voice. And then I know I'm called into action to witness them into being.
I love that phrase, called into action to witness them into being.
Yeah. Wow.
That's brilliant, Teri. I think on that phrase, we should probably start wrapping up. And I want to thank you both for your candor and thoughtfulness and for the words that you've brought with such grace. And for all of you who've joined tonight from all over the world, thank you for coming and for having me.
A big thank you to all three of today's speakers, Doireann Ní Ghríofa, Teri Ellen Cross Davis, and Erin Fornoff. Thank you as well to our captioner and our ASL interpreters, and a big thank you to all of you for watching today's reading. You can check out poetryfoundation.org/events for future virtual events and library programming. We are also open to feedback about our programming and would appreciate it if you took a minute to fill out our feedback form. It'll be put in the chat. Thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your weekend.